Hello and welcome to the SMD Radio Podcast. I am your host, Craig Coleman. A little over a year ago, Bob Farrell and I set out on a journey to create an informational podcast focused on the world of noise, vibration, and harshness, also referred to as NVH. Our goal was to not only share information related to the subject, but also learn from other leaders in the industry. In today's podcast, we are focused on the testing fields of NDT, or non-destructive testing, and NDE, or non-destructive evaluation. Although both fields are very similar, they also differ in fundamental ways. Today, Bob Farrell of Farrell Marcom and I, joined by NDE professional Mark Koehler of PNDE, or Professional NDE, to explore some of these differences. Good morning, gentlemen. How are you?
Morning.
Hey, Craig, doing well.
Mark, thank you for joining us. While preparing for today's podcast, I couldn't help but notice that PNDE has a very familiar logo or symbol with a sentimental meaning behind it. Can you elaborate on what that symbol means to you and your company? And furthermore, can you give us a brief overview of you and your company's background?
Sure. So, I work for a company. I'm a principal in one of the divisions called Professional NDE Services. And we've got three distinct divisions that we have. We have a consulting division, we have a services division, which is probably our busiest and services the most different markets that are out there that require NDT. And then we also have a satellite facility that's specifically dedicated to GE Aviation in Asheville, North Carolina. As far as the symbol goes, that is something we came up with very early on. One of our big cultural, foresights were to have good unity, good teamwork, not just with our customers, but also our employees. So very cultural based business. We try to treat the customer the way they need to be treated. Our employees are part of a profit sharing program, and we're very big on trying to keep that unity and teamwork together. As far as my background goes, I started really early on, straight out of high school. 1989, started as a trainee, worked my way up the ladder, and long story short, got into management after being a technician for many, many years. And then from there, we developed, a consulting business. They're moving around a little bit within my career, but ultimately we were allowed to come together as a really good group and build a very cool company right now.
Very cool. Yeah, I saw the symbol, and I remember I have a tattoo of it on my arm, so I hope you can see that, but it was very familiar to me.
You're hired.
All right, Bob, I think I'm going to turn things over to you. I know you have a few important questions as well.
Yeah, thanks, Craig. I do. Mark, as Craig and I were kind of looking into NDT, it quickly became apparent that this was quite a big field. And I wonder if you might take just a minute or two to kind of address that aspect of things.
Sure. So, yeah, NDT is a very, very vast field, but at the same time, it's a very small niche market. It's like a professional trade. But like you said, there's a lot of need for NDT, and it spreads across just about every different market you can think of. I mean, the obvious ones are aviation, automotive, obviously space, defense. You get into medical, civil engineering, bridges and buildings, petrochemical, pipeline, chemical companies, and then also just general fabrication work. A lot of this is driven by codes and standards in the world. And some of it's can be just customer information. It could be problem solving, but there's a lot of uses for NDT, and it's a very good business to be in if you're a young individual that has reasonable amounts of common sense and smarts. So you can get to this business and be a really, really top-notch individual.
So what? Obviously, non-destructive testing, you're talking in terms are a little bit about some savings that you don't have to continuously destroy something that you're testing, but what other advantages are there to that?
Yeah, that's the primary. There's obviously non-destructive. We don't tear anything up, break anything. And probably the biggest advantages are the NDT has multiple methods. There's some core methods that we can get into, and then there's real spin-off methods after that. It can get very specialized. I mean, to the point where you're in research institutes at colleges and things like that. But the core methods are what are the fundamental NDT. Basically, how it all started was just these 5 core methods, and that's mag particle, penetrant radiography, ultrasonics, eddy current. Of course, there's also visual testing, which is kind of an obvious one. You're using your eyes to look at something as opposed to using some other equipment. But the core methods really can be spread out across just about anything. And they're unique to how they're applied, if you will, in the sense that there's surface inspections, and then there's also volumetric inspections. So obviously surface inspections are where you have direct access to a surface. There's a lot of variables there, whether it's painted, rusted, corroded, brand new finished machine, or what have you, heat treated. But then there's also the side that's volumetric, where you apply a couple methods. For example, radiography, that'll be the simplest one to explain, where you have radiography, where you have X-ray basically going through the material and producing a latent image on film or some digital media, which is what's more prevalent today. And then, of course, you have ultrasonics, where you introduce sound, and the same principles there. You're going through the part looking for basically reflections of indications, and it's a lot of it's based on variables with calibration and so forth. So it's very adaptable, I guess I'd say, in just about every industry.
So what would determine the method that one might choose for a particular project? Is that dependent on what you're testing, or is that dependent on the outcome you're looking for, or what determines that?
Well, a little bit of everything, and in addition to that, probably more so, the spec will drive that. Usually parts are engineered prior to, and a specification and NDT methods are applied to that, to those parts. But if you were going from scratch, you would be looking at, what am I trying to find? For example, if you're looking at a weld, and if you're just looking for surface cracking and that weld's been in service, so to speak, so it might be a fatigue related issue, you would probably apply either mag particle or penetrant, because those are surface inspections that are best suited to find cracking and so forth on the surface. The penetrant would be used in a non-ferrous type situation, like stainless steel, aluminum, things that can't carry magnetism. And then the magnetic particle examination would be used for parts that are ferrous and that can be easily magnetized. And then conversely to that, if you said, well, I'm not really looking at cracking, I'm looking at a brand new weld, and I want to see if it's welded properly. And the requirements are to have no lack of penetration or lack of fusion down in the weld when it was first made. You're going to use ultrasonics or radiography, because that way you can look through the part and look into that weld material and see if there's any issues there that maybe don't meet the standards.
As far as your company goes, is there a particular area where you specialize, or do you specialize in multiple areas? What is it that you provide?
Yeah, so our services division pretty much is wide open. We do pretty much every method there. We do it both in-house and in the field. When we say in the field, like at the customer site. So we have a large, very vast capability there. Our consulting division is just that. It's made up of subject matter experts, level 3s, that may go in and service different clients or help write procedures, or if they have an internal NDT facility, which is, can happen in some of these manufacturing environments, then maybe provide the oversight that they need for techniques and personnel certifications and just kind of their overall technical advice. And then our other division in North Carolina is specifically wrapped around doing ultrasonics, immersion ultrasonics, specifically on some aircraft engine hardware for GE Aviation. So we do a little bit of everything in our Cincinnati office, and our consulting is also based out of Cincinnati, so we can do anything and travel anywhere for that. So
great. Well, yeah, that's really about all I had on my list. Is there anything we didn't ask, or is there anything that you feel you might want to elaborate on further that we talked about?
No, just NDT is a really good career path for a lot of young folks that are not sure what they're going to do. It's a nice alternative to a full-blown degree at a college, although you can get an associate's degree in NDT and maybe even a bachelor's degree if you find the right college. So, but it's a really good business to be in. It's, like I said, a niche field. It's interesting. It's different every day. We deal with so many different end markets that never the same day twice, basically.
If you were interested in a degree in it, or getting into the field, what would you suggest that potential students might want to concentrate on? What areas of study?
Sure. It's it's very engineering based, but not an engineering degree. You got two paths you can go. You can go to a small college and look for an associate's degree. There's one out in, I think out in Oklahoma. There may be one up in Wisconsin as well. But there's a few of them out there that teach NDT on a 2-year level. And then the other path is simply start with a company like ours. You can start like I did. I started from the ground floor up. I knew really very little about NDT when I first started. So I was just a trainee and started working underneath the certified individuals and and then work my way up the ladder from there. And it's along the way you'll get specialized training that's required as part of for every method there's a path that you have to have formal training and on-the-job training, as well as passing testing for each particular method. So you can do it from scratch. I mean, it doesn't take necessarily a degree to do it. So you got a couple options.
It seems like it might be a field for someone who is interested in doing some traveling and getting into meeting some different people and some different companies along the way. Is that a fair assessment of a typical job?
Yes, it can be. Travel is going to be dependent upon the company you work for, but regardless, you're going to move around and do a lot of different things, and it's never a boring job. You may be in a laboratory environment one day and then out in the field the next day. So it has a lot of variety. I think that's what attracts a lot of people.
Great. So how would someone who's interested to learn more about what Professional NDE offers, where would they find that information, and who would they talk to about that?
So we've got a website. It's www.professionalnde.com. That's probably the simplest path to see a little bit more about our companies. Probably need to do some updating it. We're outgrowing our website quicker than we've been updating it, putting the focus on that. But regardless, there's a lot of information on there about the company and the different divisions that we have, or different services we offer, I should say. And then of course they could always reach out to me, and I can get in touch with the right people if they were interested, whether it be a client or a person that's interested in starting a career.
They say all great things must come to an end, or at least break for an intermission. But I want to thank both of you guys for joining me on today's podcast. I feel like we have learned quite a bit today, but I feel like there's a lot more we can learn, and maybe we could do that in future podcasts. But until then, thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Craig.
Thanks, Craig.